Thank you very much, JB, and I'm happy to be here and to be here with my friends, Abubaker and my sister. And let me, first of all, thank the chief guest, the minister, and Mr. Phillip Karugaba. Phillip has given us a good context describing the nature of our politics. You see, if we speak about journalism practice, freedom of the press, without contextualizing it in society, we will find ourselves treating symptoms and not the real disease. What Phillip described of an example of two candidates who were competing against each other, but they were civil to the extent that one of them, Uganda, who did not have a vehicle, would hike a lift from Robert Chitariko, and they would go to campaign on the same podium against each other, and that would be it. If you trace the history and the patterns of our electoral processes, you will know that so much has changed in the nature of our politics. The nature of our electoral process today cannot be compared with what we've seen in the past. The level of commercialization, for instance, the amount of money anybody who wishes to participate in these elections invests in order just to even begin to demonstrate interest. And tied to that is the fact that once people have invested so much in an electoral process, they are not prepared to obey and follow any rules. So somebody sells their entire estate, they sell their cars, they sell their cows, they sell their houses,
and even go into loans,
and go to the loan sharks in town. Now they enter the political arena prepared to do anything in order to win, and that anything includes being violent, and not only violent to the electorate, but to even the media itself. So the violence we see, and which we must all speak against, is violence in the electoral process. And that freedom of the media and freedom of the press can only be guaranteed and sustainable when the entire electoral process, including of the voters, including of the candidates, is secured. So, from the Electoral Commission point of view, we say, and this is what Abubaker was talking about, that when we are preparing and organizing an election, we are not organizing for war. And we should, as much as possible, all of us, including the media, escalate any indication that presents the electoral process as a war and a battlefield. Unfortunately, we have found that the narrative that comes even from the press presents what happens on the ground as if we are preparing for war. I know, for instance, Kawempe will never go away, clearly. And I think there's going to be movies and documentaries and books about the ghosts of Kawempe. I'm just giving a free title. The ghosts of Kawempe. But Kawempe, what we saw that we did not like, no one likes it. And it should be a call of all of us to say we don't want to see what happened in Kawempe happening elsewhere. But what we did take from the media, and Dr. Tayewu and I covered the 2001 election. We were one of the lead reporters during that election. The churches were our editors. We had myself, we had Tayewu, we had Honorable Semuju. We were covering different camps. I was covering Kizza Bessigye's procession. Tayewu, I think, was covering Museveni and his team, and Semuju was covering Muhammad Chivirige Mayanja. and then we would coordinate that coverage. But at no point would somebody meet Tayewa and brand him M7 reporter, or Julius as a KB reporter, or Semujo as a Chibirige Mayanja reporter. There is a dangerous trend that is happening in our media, and we have to face some of these facts. Journalism needs to return to the core principles and ethics of responsible journalism.
Okay, Julius, we are going to come to the way forward.
Yes.
But the role of the Electoral Commission as a superintendent of the electoral process,
yes,
is key for me. We are going to come to the way forward.
But
what
let
do we need to do?
me speak about that.
Yes.
You see, the electoral process and the Electoral Commission, to have a free, fair, credible, and transparent election is not the responsibility of the Electoral Commission alone.
Granted.
The Electoral Commission is a referee of a political game. And when you have a referee of Arsenal versus Man U, the only people that will ensure that that game is free and fair is not just the Electoral Commission. If you have participants, players who say that for us, if we miss the ball, we will not miss the what? The leg. If you have spectators in the Churasha who, instead of cheering the game, decide to have insults of racial nature or whichever nature to the players on the pitch, you will not have a free and fair game. If you have coaches, these are political parties, leaders, who say we will not follow any rules. For us, we are in it to do what the Lumumbis used to do, Lumumba, that we either win or they lose. Surely, if you go in an electoral process with candidates and actors only expecting one result, yet they know that in an electoral process there will be winners, there will be losers. And as Philip said, that losing today, I think it is either Philip or Secretary, if losing today is not the end of the world. We must create conditions in our electoral process, in our society, where elections are not a do or die affair. But we've gone to that extent. So if we have an environment that is saturated with such mentality, even the media and journalists will not be safe. Because as we have been told in our academic track record, there is media and society. Media does not, and press freedom does not exist in isolation of what is happening in the entire societal setup. So the role of the Electoral Commission is very significant. We are the midwives of this process. We are the referees of this process.
So you can give yellow cards and red cards.
We'll get yellow cards, they get finished, we go to red cards, they get finished, we get everybody off the pitch. But the Constitution is very clear that an election must take place unless if we want to overthrow the Constitution. Article 61, clause 2, says that the Electoral Commission shall, and the lawyers are here, meaning that whether the devil wants it or not, that election must happen. We must have leaders before the expiry of the term of office of the current leaders, and that by the 12th of May 2026, a new team must be in place. But we must create those conditions. All of us and the media are critical partners in that process.
Thank you very much, Julius. Allow me bring in Madam Joanna Nakabiito from the Interreligious Council of Uganda, and she's the manager in charge of peace, governance, and the East African affairs. Joanna, when we are talking about peace and governance, which is your docket, but you have journalists here worried and praying that they can leave the newsroom. They are praying that we have to prepare for a very chaotic electoral process. Newsrooms are buying very serious protective gears and jackets, and some people resigning and all those kinds of things. What's the way forward? Julius, you have been in the newsroom, you have done these things, covered these stories. Now you're a little bit on the other side, but this is the noble profession that has developed all of us. This is also playing a very critical role in terms of informing the public and society. From where you sit now, what would you want to see journalism, journalists and media houses doing to see that they bring out the truth, that they are not taking sides, but also to enhance their trust and their own safety in the 2026 election process?
I think that journalism is in crisis. Today we have about 300 radio stations. The Media Council would know. Okay. Now, almost every district or even every village now, sub-county has a radio station. Ask yourself, who owns them? The academics will talk about media ownership. Who owns these media? Because you see, the radio now is everywhere, owned by politicians. If you asked a politician who owns a radio station, they are all over, they are everywhere. Actually, even today as we speak, they are using them. I am not sure that they are using them to advance democracy. I am not sure that they are using them to advance development. I am not sure that they are using them to advance unity. They are perhaps using them to advance personal political fortunes. And they have people staffed in those studios, not journalists, not trained, with a brief to do anything and everything to ensure that the owner or the interest of the ownership remains afloat. That is a serious problem. And they are everywhere. We're talking about a small group here. The professional media can manage its own internal dynamics to remain professional. But I think the challenge which the regulators need to focus on, Media Council, UCC, and everybody, and the training media institutions that train, is to do outreaches to these places, because the real danger is actually happening on the ground beyond the streets of Kampala. That's where poison is being fed on our population, that there is no middle ground, there is no meeting of ideas, that you can't disagree and remain agreeable, disagreeable, you can't disagree or agree to disagree, that if somebody belongs in one camp, then those are enemies. And the media is at the center of this. So we need more community outreach in journalism to restore the principles of journalism beyond the capital and the urban centers. The real danger is out there. So that is one. But I also wanted to say something about the citizen journalists and citizen journalism and its place in our democratic process. The lawyers, when you read Article 29 about freedom of expression, actually it says that every person, meaning that everybody, and it also ends by saying including the freedom of the press, which means the freedom of expression to express themselves is not just ours, but the media, we've tried to own it and thought that it is ours. It is not ours. It is for the entire citizenry. And we need, therefore, to take back journalism to citizens. I'll give one example and finish. When I was still very active in reporting, I went to a press conference addressed by a number of presidents from the Great Lakes region, after they had given us assurances of how there would not be another Kisangani. I put up my hand and I said, but Your Excellencies, what I see in this statement is that you have only changed the venue and the dates. But the assurances you've been giving, you gave them last year, they failed. You gave them the other year, they failed. Even today, what assurance are you giving to Ugandans and the people of East Africa that we will not see an abrogation of this same statement? Yeah. And the presidents were very angry with me. One of them even said, if you produce a child and the child dies, do you stop producing? And I was being called the prophet of doom. But this is the shocker. When I went home, the story was on UBC, UTV at the time. My own people who saw me asking these questions they abused me and said, but you are indisciplined. How do you stand there and you start asking a president or presidents in this with such a tone without due regard to the fact that these are presidents? Clearly, they did not see that the question I was asking was on their behalf. Yeah. Journalism must return to addressing and forwarding and pushing the interests of citizens. Because the greatest protection and defender of press freedom is the citizens, not police, not the army, not the employer, not even associations of journalists. The public must feel that when a journalist is at the front line, whether it is in Kawempo or anywhere, they are not there because they are pushing the interests of the media house, but they are there as our eyes and ears to what is happening, and that they are pushing the agenda of the citizens, not some partisan or narrow agendas that now we seem to see. Journalism must return to its core of representing, becoming the voiceless, becoming the watchdogs of society, ensuring that the issues we push are those that affect citizens, not just the powerful.
Thank you very much, Julius. Allow me bring in Joanna. Members, you can put together your question or comment after this round of questions. We need to get some feedback from you as well. So, Joanna, apart from what you are doing, I think it's important that we remind ourselves of what we should also do, the different parties. The journalists are here, the Electoral Commission is here, the security agencies are not represented, but they will get this message. What do we need to do to ensure that when we get into the deep of the 2026 general election, we can ensure that there's freedom of expression, we can ensure that the journalists are respected, and everyone's right is respected?
Thank you for that question. First, I could say that, where truth is controlled, peace is never permanent, it's only postponed. So it's very important that when it comes to the media space, when it comes to the security space and all the actors that are involved, it's time for us to have respect for each other's mandates. I think that that's the core of everything. But if I'm to look at the security sector, I think it's not just a matter of us saying that, you know what, security sector, you are doomed. I had mentioned something small about the rotten apple theory, and for those of you who might not know it, it means that, if you have a basket and then you put a rotten apple in that basket, very soon all those apples are going to rot. Yeah. So basically this is something that is in, for those of you who have done criminology before, that sometimes it might not necessarily be the institution, but it might be the people who are in that institution. So if, let's say, we are talking about the security sector, we are talking about the police, which unfortunately has a very low public trust of 41%, you'll find that, let's say here at Makerere University, where I studied my first master's in peace and conflict, at the Rotary Peace Center, they are actually training people in the UPDF. But I think that this is an opportunity for some of us stakeholders who are here to support the scaling up of such a project, so that they are not working, in silos, isolated, to the extent that they are not able to have a higher reach that could enhance the strength of the security sector and its institutions.
The problem, Joanna, is that these people get all the training.
Yes.
There is the Women's Situation Room, the Interreligious Council, Human Rights Commission,
yes,
Electoral Commission, the Media Sector Working Group. They get the training, they come, they perform very well. Sometimes they even get certificates. But when the time comes, they kill these people.
And that's exactly why I'm talking about that rotten apple theory, and the fact that you cannot work independently as a single institution taking on only 30 people and training 30 people and then eventually just letting them go. I've once done a research when it comes to adapting evidence-based programming, which means just going beyond capacity building, but ensuring that that institution that you're training has the readiness to implement that program. For instance, if you're training on professionalism and ethics within security, make sure that the people who you're training have the readiness. Make sure that it is actually in accordance with the mandate of the institution. Make sure that it is in terms of the comparative or competitive advantage of that institution, because these are the things that are going to motivate them to actually work. And while we were talking about democratic health, let's also have a conversation about institutional health. I mean, we need to also support these institutions. They are not the best. Even us as Interreligious Council of Uganda, I told you I like calling ourselves out because sometimes also that shows accountability. Yeah. So at the end of the day, we should work together, not isolated, because that is how you're going to scale up and reach more people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Maybe
Joanna.
just a few things I can mention. For instance, let's say with the Electoral Commission and, you know, even the security forces, something we haven't mentioned is the pre-election code of conduct. And this is something that we are working together with these stakeholders in order to create like small pocket handbooks so that we can disseminate them to citizens so that they know where to, you know, the avenues for redress when they have been wronged, but also to accept the accountability when they have actually done wrong in the spaces that they are participating. And maybe one other thing is creating rapid response teams. Depending on the sector that you're in, these are early warning systems. This is mostly within, you know, conflict prevention, but also things concerning, you know, shuttle diplomacy, preventive diplomacy. We have a legal officer here, a lawyer, high-level lawyer, and of course we can always have further discussions concerning what we can do going forward. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Of course, this conversation can continue and has to continue, but I want to bring in other voices now from the audience.